Town Council approves a land swap that could pave the way for the reopening of the West Barnstable shooting range. We have details on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Friday, November 4th, 2016. I'm Sarah Mantle. Town Council takes a vote on a land swap that is necessary for the reopening of the West Barnstable shooting range. Before the vote, Town Manager Mark Ells gave an overview of the issues surrounding the range and talked about the different options available to the town.
To me, really what the issue is right now, and as we look at this, is certainly the procedural aspects of identifying these lands of equal value and coming up with a equal size and equal environmental value, and then offering them through a process that's established by the state to make this exchange occur. And you are a critical step in this process. Conservation has already recognized the 27 acres that is the shooting range and the lead area out there. They've approved us to go forward. So now we're here before Town Council. So depending on what is decided tonight in the vote, if it's decided, to me it boils down to really two major areas, and certainly these can be broken down into even further pieces. If you're going to permanently close the range, it takes us out from under the lead initiative, which is a state agreement with the recreational hunting and other national and local groups that says, yes, we recognize that these ranges exist, we recognize that there's lead around these ranges, and if you manage it responsibly, we understand that it's there and it will stay there. But if we are no longer a range, if we abandon this, then we are put, this is treated like solid waste, and we'll put under 21E, and we need to clean this up. It's not a discussable item, it's state law. So if we decide not to go forward with the swap, I will be bringing to the Town Council a request hopefully we'll have the time, but I would like to do it under the budgetary process, certainly, and not have to do some supplemental request, to proceed with a comprehensive site assessment, an evaluation of alternatives, and then ultimately a recommendation for remediation of the site that will be associated with a cost. And I'm using the consultant's numbers that were given to us to assume that if we're not going to allow this to open as a range, that you want it restored as upland wooded area. So that would mean everything's got to come out. And 2 years ago, the numbers were between $7.5 and $9.5 million to do that. Would probably have a year maybe to put this assessment together, and then depending on what the state decides relative to an administrative consent or some sort of consent order, I don't know what the timeframes would be for us to complete this. They don't give us funding for us to comply. I actually managed your landfill closure many years ago, and we had similar numbers and a similar challenge where we had to come up with the way to manage this from all aspects, including financially. So that's one alternative. Another major, and there's a lot of variations of that, and certainly as we go through an alternatives analysis, we may get into discussions about leaving it on site and restricting it, not restricting. There's all sorts of alternatives, but I'm trying to somewhat simplify this discussion, but it is a complicated one. If we reopen the range, if you vote to transfer this property and we move to the next step and we are successful in it, and if the Massachusetts Lead Initiative stays in place, which it is in place right now, but we don't control that, then we can manage that facility as a range, and we can manage the lead at that site. But that doesn't come without a cost. And Councilor Flores had asked me a question back in July when we did the last update. And I had answered him that, well, to entirely clean this up and remove it from there, it's the same price no matter what you do. And I had said to him that the difference really is the time frame in which you have to do it. And I still hold with that position. I think, though, if you reopen the range, you're going to have to move it into municipal. And that's a significant difference than having it as conservation land. Because our alternatives will be different. We may very well be able to leave the lead in place and treat it in place and therefore have a different cost going forward with that, whether it's an open range or not, as part of our cleanup price. But that'll be something that would come out of a future comprehensive site assessment. So we have the lead initiative in place. We would need to go forward with some initial site reclamation, meaning we got to go up there and clean up the 2.5 acres. Got to clean up any lead, we got to tighten up that site quite a bit. That's part of being a part of the lead initiative. We got to modernize the shooting range. And I'd make that request to you in FY 2018. We're probably looking on the low end at 325, on the high end at 450. That includes the cleanup, and then it depends on how far we want to go with mitigating measures like more baffles and no blue sky. And that's why I put the range in there. I also want to identify to you that we have made a commitment to move forward in a responsible way in managing this, and under the lead initiative, we're expected to. And so in a subsequent year, I'd come to you to go forward with that comprehensive site assessment and alternatives. And I think we're probably looking, if we jump back a couple of slides, at the yellow area there. We're going to go in there and do some reclamation, because you've got some fairly high level lead deposits in there. We should do something about that. And we should do that over time. But it's on our timeline. And it should be linked to what sort of downgradient impacts we're seeing. And if we're seeing none, then we have a longer timeline. If we see them, then we don't. But it gives us options to manage this scenario. It also gives us options, or better options, to keep it in place and manage it.
Ultimately, 10 councillors voted in favor of the land swap, with councillors Dagwan, Hebert, and Wallace voting against the measure. The measure passed with the required 2/3 support and will now be sent to the state legislature, where it will also need 2/3 support in order to pass. Following the vote, Town Council President Jessica Rapp-Grassetti talked about the lengthy process.
Those two items first came on our council agenda in August of 2014. This has been a very long, very arduous, and I know it's very emotional, especially for the abutters of this area, but I trust in our town manager to do the right thing and to shepherd the care and custody of this property going forward. So, and I appreciate everybody's input on this matter, so thank you.
Town Council also voted to approve the Council's strategic plan and to appoint several new members to town boards, committees, and commissions. Town Council will meet again Thursday, November 17th at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall hearing room. We'll be sure to tune in to our hour-long news program, Barnstable This Morning, weekdays at 8 a.m. On Monday's show, we will meet the new executive director of the Osterville Village Library. We'll find out what's happening at Cape Cod Community College with Communications Director Michael Gross. Plus, we'll have all the news and information you need. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mantle.
Channel 18 is the town of Barnstable's government access television station. Our staff of 4, a news coordinator, assistant news coordinator, and 2 videographers are responsible for all aspects of producing our programming. Every weekday, we produce Barnstable This Morning, a live hour-long news program that includes live interviews with local leaders, feature segments, weather, sports, boating, and fishing reports. Barnstable Today, a 10-minute newscast, is also produced on a daily basis with a focus on board, committee, and commission meetings and special events in town. Our staff is also responsible for coordinating coverage of more than 30 monthly board, committee, and commission meetings, producing special programming, and maintaining Channel 18's informational bulletin boards. Channel 18 headquarters are at Barnstable Town Hall. We have a small television studio and office, 2 camera-equipped hearing rooms, and a control room and operations center on the top floor of the building. Channel 18 is solely operated by the town of Barnstable.